Welcome to Breathe In, Scream Out, a podcast for feeling it all, one breath and scream at a time. I'm Katie Healy, your guide through this sacred mess called life. Here in this podcast, we'll feel everything. We'll cry, we'll laugh, we'll scream, and maybe scream again. Let's get into it. Hello, welcome back to Breathe In, Scream Out. I'm your host, Katie Healy, and today's episode is a solo episode all about Gemini season, the Sagittarius full moon, the Gemini new moon. And before we get into everything Gemini season, what am I screaming about? This is the 1-year anniversary of this podcast. I started this podcast with the Gemini season episode. So it has been a year of me yapping, screaming, laughing, crying, interviewing some of my favorite people, sharing it with the world. And it is easily my favorite thing that I get to do. And I want to do more and more of it. Thank you for tuning in, whether this is the first time you're listening or you've listened to every single episode. Thank you for liking, subscribing, sharing, giving me feedback. It feels so wild to have been sharing this all with you for the last year, and not just made possible by you, also made possible by my amazing producer, Marielle. I would not be sharing this with the world if it wasn't for her genius and helping me. I am not a minutia, attention to detail. It's not where my genius lies at all. And it is, like I said, my favorite thing that I do. And this year has been so hard when I think back to this time last year and where I was to where I am now. A lot of things didn't work out how I thought they would. And still to be able to share this all with you and share these episodes, interview people that I love, people that I've never even met, that I just admire and are in the wellness space or in any space that I exist in, has been the highlight of my year. Seriously. Personally, professionally, I was dragged through it, and this has been my constant and, like I said, my favorite thing to do. And I would love, if you're listening to this episode, for you to share it, especially as this is the 1-year anniversary. And I'm going to be giving away a birth chart reading so if you share it on your stories, share it with a friend. If you leave a written review for the podcast, screenshot it, send it to me, and I'll enter you for the chance to win an astrology reading with me, a birth chart reading. And I would love to be able to share that with you as a thank you, the least I could do. And as usual, we'll start with a scream. This one is more joyous. There's plenty of things I'm feeling pissed off about, mainly everyone's lack of hope in this society. And like I said last time, everybody's smoking cigarettes, giving up on life. Okay. We're going to talk about that with this Gemini Sagittarius axis and why hope is sometimes the only option to keep going. But we're going to start the way we always do with the scream before we get into all things Gemini and Sag. So wherever you are, if you're in a space where you can sit, lie down, close your eyes, or hold them open with a soft gaze. If you're driving, walking, listening to this at work, just adjusting as you need to. And then feeling your seat beneath you, feeling your feet beneath you, really making contact with the floor, wherever your feet are, wood, concrete, grass. And just beginning to notice your body, the feeling, the sensation of your seat, your feet, wherever you are. Maybe your hands are on top of your knees or thighs, giving them a gentle squeeze, just to actually feel yourself right where you are. And then just beginning to notice your natural breath, your inhale and exhale. And together, I'll guide us through 3 deeper breaths. The last breath will make some sound. Adjust as you need and take all the time that you need. Take a deep inhale through your nose. Big sigh out through your mouth. Another big breath in through your nose. Big sigh out through your mouth. This final round of breath on the exhale will make some sound. Maybe that's a scream, a sigh, a laugh, a yell in whatever space you're in, out loud or into your hands. We'll take a deep breath in together. Some sound out on that sigh. Flutter your lips. Maybe you roll your shoulders. Take another sigh. And then again, come back to your natural breath. Maybe rub your hands, squeeze your legs, just to remind yourself again exactly where you are. Feel your seat, your feet beneath you. If your eyes are closed, begin to flutter your eyes back open. And let's jump into all things Gemini season. So this episode is coming to you a few days into Gemini season. Gemini season started on May 20th. It ends on June 20th. There is a Sagittarius full moon this upcoming Sunday, May 31st. It's a blue moon, the second full moon in the month of May. We started with the Scorpio full moon. And then we have our Gemini new moon on June 14th. And the reason why, aside from it being the 1-year anniversary of this podcast, this episode is so important to me is because, as you know, if you have listened or I have talked your head off about astrology and my birth chart, I am a Sagittarius Sun, Gemini rising. I'm also a Sagittarius Mercury. So I feel like I have a deep understanding, respect, reverence for this mutable energy. The sun, our life force, Gemini, the rising sign for me, how you show up in the world. Mercury, also for me in Sag, is Mercury is communication, thinking, how I learn, share. It's why I never shut up, right? Why I've got a lot to say, which I've accepted about myself. But Gemini season, Gemini is the third of the 12 signs of the zodiac. And I'm sure, as you know, recently there was a viral clip of Billie Eilish talking about astrology and Gemini men. Gemini gets a bad rep. I get it. But we'll get to that. Gemini is the first air sign of the 12 signs of the zodiac. It is ruled by Mercury, the planet of communication. So whenever Mercury is in retrograde, Gemini placements or Gemini suns may really be feeling the Mercury retrograde energy. It represents the twins, so duality. It's also a mutable sign. I've shared this before, but mutables are Gemini Sag, the pair, and Pisces Virgo, the pair. And those signs, when you think of the seasons that fall within those signs, Gemini is end of May to middle of June. Virgo is end of August to middle of September. Sag is middle to end of November to middle of December. Pisces is middle of February to middle of March. They're the in-between of the seasons. They're the in-between of spaces and times. So mutable energy is adaptable, changeable, a little chaotic. Sagittarius is a fire sign. It is also mutable. It's ruled by Jupiter. And you might know Sag as the horse, the center. Those are the things that represent Sag energy. I like to start with, for this episode, I don't always do this, but I was thinking about it last night. I didn't even realize my favorite artist, Robin, is a Gemini. Of course she is. She's also a Capricorn moon. I am a Capricorn moon. But other people you may know and love that are represented in the media or in art and culture that I think really embody Gemini energy, besides Robin: Stevie Nicks, Prince, Tupac, Notorious B.I.G., Kendrick, some of the best lyricists of all time, like poetic in every sense of the word. Marilyn Monroe, Lauryn Hill. When I think about these artists, there's something about them that is adaptable, changeable. They have a way with words, their style of communication. Their words hold so much power and weight, whatever the genre is. People really resonate with them. They can be a little chaotic, charismatic. Of course, the rest of their birth chart really, like I always say, the sun sign doesn't always mean much to me, but I do think these people really embody some of that energy. And one of the interesting things about Gemini season is after a really grounding, stabilizing, deep, aesthetic, sensual Taurus season, a season to be in our bodies, to understand what it means to be an embodiment, right? If Aries is the first sign, I am, and Taurus is about the body, I feel. And then Gemini is the first time we go up into the mind, I think. This season is about really awakening our minds and connecting to everything that's possible, all the options, that duality of not either or, but and both. And this season is a time to really get curious, open your mind, stretch yourself in terms of what's possible, not just for you, but for the world and the way you think. Gemini is the eternal student. It's hungry to learn. It's hungry to communicate and share that information. Even though our attention is maybe going a little inward, it helps us shape reality, our experiences, our thoughts, how we view the world, how we think, how we share. And it's also a yapper. Doesn't shut up, loves to talk. The elephant in the room, Kanye West, is a Gemini. Donald Trump is a Gemini. I can't think of two people who say crazier shit. I could actually, but you know what I mean. And not to make it about that, but that's the duality, right? The way with words and just how they create their own reality, quite literally. And there's a lot that goes into the both of them that we will not get into. I don't have time in just this short podcast to get into all that. But again, when I think of this polarizing duality energy, they come up too. Right now, we have an extra added layer of Gemini energy. So mutability, changeability, adaptability, a little chaotic, the mind moving, thinking, communicating, sharing, because Uranus, the planet of rebellion, upheaval, change, is in Gemini for the first time in 84 years. I talked about this on the last solo episode, and we're really in the thick of it now. Depending on where your Gemini placements are, if you have any, or what part of your chart is ruled by Gemini, you might be feeling this more than others. You might be feeling a change in your thought process or how you show up in terms of your communication style, what you're learning, what your interests are. Gemini is my rising sign, so it is in my first house. And I have been going through an identity, I don't want to say crisis, but big identity shift in this last year, but I'm really feeling the weight of it, not in a negative way, but in a something has to change. I've actually been saying it for a few weeks now, like, other people in my life have not changed. I have changed. And I'm weighing my relationships, how I show up in them. I've even said, I can't be upset with these people. They have not changed. I am the person that has changed and is changing. And I'm excited to see, a little scared to see where these next 7 years take me and all of us, because it's bringing into focus not identity for all of us. It's whatever part of your chart Gemini rules, but in general, how we think, how we learn, how we communicate, how we process, how we share information. It's not lost on me that AI is popping off as Uranus is moving into Gemini and has moved into Gemini. And hello, one of the AI tools is called Gemini. If astrology isn't real, why did one of the biggest companies in the world, one of the biggest tech companies, name their AI note-taking software after Gemini? You can't make this shit up. So if you still think if you still think astrology is not real, if you still think Geminis are not real, because some people are like, they are not real beings. But that's a prime example of it. The same people that shit on astrology are the same ones using it and naming things after it. So beyond just how we share collectively, this season, Uranus and Gemini aside, is always a time to really examine our thoughts, to question our thoughts, to be with our thoughts, to think about our thoughts, the who, the what, the where, the when, the why we believe what we believe, the narratives we have about who we are and who other people are to us, about the world around us. And it's a powerful time for manifestation, of course, using our thoughts and the power of our thoughts to create new realities, to live in a reality that we wish already existed. How are we talking about our current reality and the one we're trying to create? How do we talk about our life? How do we talk about ourselves to ourselves and to other people? What do we say? How do we describe who we are? And how do we get overly attached to those narratives we have about ourselves, the people we're in relationship to, the world around us? One of my favorite parts about my Gemini rising and my Sag too, but the Sag can be a bit more dogmatic than the Gemini, is as I've gotten older and worked on myself more and more and understood this information in a deeper way, the gift of Gemini and this season is the perspective it gives us to see how we can shift things just with how we think and communicate and show up. And I would have never described myself as an overthinker as a child. I was way more impulsive and just like do, never think. And then I've gone too far in the opposite direction with the overthinking. I don't think that's just Gemini. I think that's life, death, grief, all the heaviness that has landed in my lap in the last 10 years. But it has helped me embrace my ability to see my own bias within myself, within other people, to see the way I assign or over-assign meaning to things. It's a time to just think differently, to show up differently, to question, not in a devil's advocate way, because, listen, I've said it before, I'll say it again. A white man's playing devil's advocate takes me from 0 to 100 in 6 seconds flat. So it's not that, but it's more about, like I said, expanding what's possible for ourselves and the world around us. So where is Gemini in your chart? Everyone has a house ruled by Gemini, whether you have Gemini placements or not. If you know your rising sign, you can figure out where Gemini is in your chart. And if you don't, you look it up. But wherever Gemini is in your chart, the house that it lives in, those are the themes that you'll be reviewing, living through, sitting in during this season. Maybe that's the house that needs a reframe or an adjustment in point of view. Maybe if you have planets in Gemini and in that house, those are the things you find yourself coming up against this season or continuously coming up with as you meet Gemini energy, whether it's Gemini season and the new moon in Gemini, or if it's Sag season with a Gemini full moon, or these next 7 years with Uranus and Gemini. And yes, Gemini is categorized as the brain, the thinker, the first step that we have in that lineup of 12 zodiac signs where we really start to analyze, be in the mind, be the student, live in the head, overthink, overanalyze. And we often underestimate just how gifted and open-hearted Gemini is when it comes to connection with other people. What is more open and available than truly listening and receiving information? And not just to say you know the thing, but to understand it and then share it with other people around you. I've had plenty of people, men, that I've spent time with that regularly say they're fascinated with what I learn and what I have to share. This one guy I dated years ago, every time I saw him would just say, "What did you learn this week? I love learning through you and what you learned this week." And I attribute that to my Gemini energy, right? My desire to learn and share. And what is more open than sitting and listening to another person's story, fully invested, fully open, fully engaged, and really listening, right? That's the Gemini Sag axis, the listening, the absorbing, the storytelling. That's the Sag too. Sag isn't always as good of a listener as Gemini though. And that's what Gemini, one of the gifts. It's not just about the mind and thinking and analyzing. It's its ability to connect with people and really make them feel heard and seen and understood. And if you've had a toxic relationship with the Gemini, maybe you know they can also manipulate and twist and turn, and we'll get to that. But we're talking about Gemini energy in its purest form. without the overshadowing of all our human bullshit, all our human trauma, all our human stressors, all our human biases. Gemini energy is sociable and light and hilarious. I mean, not to toot my own horn, but one thing I know about myself is I'm funny. Okay, that's Sag and Gemini too. And it's big clown energy. Big clown energy. Like, I am a clown in my heart of hearts. Before I am a girl, I am a clown. I am a court jester. What is one of my favorite memes is I'm like if a mermaid was an uncle. And sometimes that's how I describe myself. But thinking about Gemini and Sag together, and every Gemini and Sagittarius season, whether we're in Gemini or Sag, we always get that energy of full moon and new moon in that energy. So the high vibrational energy, the light, the evolved energy of Gemini is it allows us to detach from being ruled by our emotions while still being present with them. We're less reactive to the feelings. They don't control us, but we allow it to be deeply informative, and we still feel our feelings when we're in that Gemini evolved high vibration space. It's not about being only in the mind, but it's about realizing this feeling doesn't have control over me. I can still feel it and move through it and use it as information moving forward. And the lower side of Gemini energy, or the lower vibration, unevolved Gemini energy, is wildly judgmental, closed-minded, ungrounded, always chaotic. I love a little chaos, but 24/7 is a little much. But that same way they bring that lightness and silliness and joy is the same way it can contribute to chaos when it's too ungrounded and just a constant state of being. And Sagittarius is the teacher. So if Gemini is a student, Sag is the teacher. It's fire. It is the storyteller, also clown energy. It is blunt, impulsive, a truth teller. It also has a deep sense of faith and is always going to, even in the hardest moments, keep going and keep trusting that something is on the other side of it. So Sag encourages us to explore. It's the traveler, it's the seeker. And when we're in the higher vibration, the more evolved side of Sag, it's all about expansion. Sag is ruled by Jupiter, the planet of abundance and growth and expansion. And we search for new ideas and ways of being and insights, and we absorb information the same way Gemini does. And maybe we take it to the next level and not just sharing person to person, but actually sharing it from that teacher, philosopher point of view. And we use that information and what we learn and we integrate it with what we already know. That's the Sag high vibration energy. The lower vibration, more unevolved, is super dogmatic, super judgmental, not listening at all, know it all. I can say these things because I have these moments, or have had at points in my life, deeply. And whether I feel that way or think I know it all, sometimes people portray me that way, or I'm giving off that energy. So it's just part of it. And in addition to that, the shadow side, the unevolved energy of Sag, is completely losing faith, completely losing hope, not being grounded in what is possible, waiting for the other shoe to drop, making choices based in fear, not based in faith. And if this wasn't the 1-year anniversary episode of, and I already did what I was screaming about, and it was that, I would have said that we're so fear-based currently. And caveat, how could we not be with the way things are going? If you live in America, how people have given up on each other, the way the systems were never even designed for us to begin with. Of course, fear is part of all of this. And to not be in the fear or allow it to have some effect on you would be toxic positivity. And Gemini and Sag are not that. It is not overriding, living on the surface. That is the shadow side of those energies. It's actually feeling the feelings, like I said with Gemini, using it as information, not letting it control us. With Sag, it's seeing the fear, seeing the upset, seeing the despair, and trusting and knowing that nothing is greater than the ability to come together, still have hope, and still keep showing up time and time and time again. So that takes us into our Sagittarius full moon on May 31st. It's the second full moon in May, and it's a blue moon. Any full moon is a powerful time to release, create space. I've said this many times, so if you've heard it many times from me, you already know. But this moon in particular is an incredibly powerful time for being honest about where we're playing small and where we're holding ourselves back. It's a time to face our fears and transform them. And many of you know I do somatic work, so everything, all of this, whatever the sign is, the evolved and unevolved parts of it live in our body. And fear especially has a way of really taking control of our body, how we relate to ourselves and the world around us. So this moon is all about what is hidden, what we're hiding from, what and where we're allowing fear to rule us. So what part of your chart is ruled by Sag? Do you have planets there? If you do, you're going to be feeling it quite literally. And even if you don't, it's a powerful moon. It's about truth-telling, being honest, coming up against those fears and making choices based in faith. And I don't mean faith, God, Jesus, religion. I mean the faith that you have made it through every hard moment. It sounds so cheesy. You have made it through every bad moment, even when you thought you wouldn't. And you keep going. And that doesn't mean that fear and that trauma and that stress does not live in your body or affect maybe how you move forward, but you have kept going, period, end of sentence. So how do we release what is holding us back, where we're playing small, where we're so stubbornly, unchangeably rooted in perspective? How can we communicate in a different way, bringing that Gemini in? How do we communicate our soul's truth and create the space, not just for ourselves to do that, but for everyone around us to do that? Like I said, Sag is honesty. You may know that of me. It is truth-telling. It is blunt. It can be fiery. It can be a seeker, a yearner, deeply intuitive, which I think people totally miss or misunderstand or underestimate. But it's not just about speaking our truth, right? A lot of times we're so quick to speak. I am very guilty of that. We're so quick to speak and defend, but how often are we willing to sit with it, discover it, share it in a way that invites other people to do the same thing? So whatever truths you've been avoiding, whatever places you've been playing small, whatever habits contribute to leading with fear and allowing that to control us, it's all coming up. The volume is being turned up to 11 with this full moon. So really listen, really speak clearly, really be honest, and really have fun. Gemini and Sag, and I'm not saying this just because I am it, but they are the most, can be, there's a lot of funny signs. But again, I'm going to die on this hill. The funniest energy of all the energies, the funnest energy. There's a lust for life and learning and understanding and knowing how much you're capable of. And that doesn't mean you always live in that space. That doesn't mean we can always live in that space. That doesn't mean that someone like me who has prominent Sag and Gemini placements doesn't have a really difficult time with understanding my sense of self-worth and trusting myself, even with all this energy in my chart. It's about trusting that we have the evidence in life, like I said, that we are capable of continuing to move on and make choices again and again and again that will get us in deeper alignment with what we truly want. And trusting that our intuition, our knowing, our feeling is enough. We're releasing the part of ourselves that wants to take a step at a time. And The word chaos or chaotic, because the world's government feels so chaotic right now, gets a bad rep. But there is something to be said about energy like Sag and Gemini, or Leo and Aries for that matter, Aquarius, the leap towards the thing. It's not just about the concrete steps we take. There's a time and a place for that. Virgo season, Capricorn season, Libra, maybe Scorpio. But we've become so obsessed with A plus B equals C equals D. I almost forgot the alphabet. Taking steps in the order of operations. I can't tell you a time in my life where I had success and it wasn't a little chaotic. And that's on understanding my energy. I'm not saying everybody needs to do this, but Gemini season, Sag full moon, Gemini new moon, like you don't need to have all the steps figured out. I had a theater company. We did our first show. 3 days before the show, I found out I needed insurance. Interesting. Okay, we got it in time. Do I always recommend doing things that way? No. But I also know myself enough that if I get too caught up in that unevolved energy of Gemini, of overthinking, overanalyzing, needing it to be perfectly right, needing to do it the quote unquote right way, or overly invested in that unevolved Sag energy of like, it has to be my way. I know it all. This is how we do it, not asking other people for help. The thing's not going to get done. This podcast, I was going to record episodes for months in advance and have the whole schedule. To my surprise, not at all. It didn't work out that way. I got the opportunity to interview someone really big last year. The episode needed to be out by a certain day. The whole plan went to the wayside. And I laughed in that moment and said, of course, because this is how my energy works. Not always, but a lot of the time. Taking the leap, doing the thing before you can talk yourself out of it. Doing the thing before you can let anyone else talk you out of it. Taking the leap and trusting that real safety, real security does not come from constantly having all your ducks in a row, from constantly A plus B equals C in your life, right? For some people that works, and I love that for you. But don't be afraid during this time especially, or any Gemini Sag access, to just take the leap and figure it the fuck out. Because you trust yourself enough to know that you know how to navigate this. Take the leap because you trust yourself to know that you will figure it out, that you will show up in the way that is best and right for you, that you will show up and actually do the damn thing. That is Gemini and Sag energy. That is what is being asked of us during this time. And with this full moon, even though it's about releasing, letting go, creating space, that's what truth telling is too, to tell someone the truth and trust that if they really see and love and accept you for who you are, the truth will not scare them away. It will not turn them off. To be honest with yourself enough to know that the honesty that you are giving yourself or shining a light on will actually help you do the thing that you've been scared to do. To trust that putting yourself out there and not having it all figured out doesn't mean you're a mess, doesn't mean you don't know what you're doing. It actually means you just have such a deep rooted sense of trust and self in not just yourself actually, but also the universe and the people around you, that you will catch yourself even if it fails, even if it doesn't work out. And what is failure anyway, right? That is my Sag rant. So for this full moon, reconnecting to hope, taking leaps of faith, shining the light on what you've been hiding, where you've been playing small, and trashing that shit. No more. This energy wants us to focus on what is good in our life, what feels good, what brings us joy, what makes us feel expansive, and creating more of that. So where are you on rinse, repeat, recycle in your life? Where are you doing things just because you feel like you have to? Where are you really playing small? And where are you afraid to use your voice? Because Sag wants you to burn that shit down, let it go, gallop off into the sunset, right? The centaur, the horse. When you think about a horse, or even the centaur, but really think about a horse, even in their most quote unquote tameable setting, they're still wild. They're still wild animals. They're still wild beasts, beautiful beasts. But there's something about a horse that is never quite trainable, that is never quite on lock. And the most beautiful, majestic, trustworthy, intuitive horses are the ones that do have that sense of wildness. And that's really what Sag is asking you to do. Name what you've been avoiding, really name it. And name it so that you can change it, so that you can let it go, and so that you can actually step into the energy that you want. Not the energy that rules you with fear, not the energy that has you making choices based in fear, but the energy that has you being really honest, especially when it's hard and scary, and aligning deeper with your life and who you are and what you want. And then we move into the Gemini new moon on June 14th. And again, if you've listened to this podcast or know the new moon cycle, thank you for bearing with me. But new moons are a time for new beginnings, all thing newness, refreshing, creating, inhabiting this sort of energy. And if Gemini is all about communication, our thoughts, how we perceive ourselves and the world around us, this new moon, like I said earlier, is a really powerful time, not just for manifesting. And I know that's become a really hot word, so I want to dig into that, a buzzword. But it's a time to actually take stock of our reality and choose to reshape what isn't working and what is. Who do we want to become? How do we want to live? And to start living that way. It's also feeling particularly potent because this is our first Gemini new moon in Uranus, and we'll be experiencing the heightened energy of that for the next 7 years. So even more so, we might feel like revolutionizing our whole life, like burning it all down, rebuilding it. We might feel even more impassioned, or we might feel the urge even more to really be a revolutionary in our bodies, in our communities, in the world around us, and create new intentions and how we want to show up in the world, and the seeds we're planting to be in that deeper sense of alignment. The Sag full moon comes first. So we're clearing the space. We're letting go of playing small. We're releasing fears. We're speaking our truth out loud so that when Gemini new moon comes up on June 14th, we can actually already be in alignment with what we really want. And then we create our new reality from that space. So what old beliefs, negative self-talk, patterns need to go. And that Sag honesty will still be playing strong and be really useful. What beliefs are running subconsciously and consciously that actually take you away from being in the fullness of your brilliance, of your energy, of your truth? We set intentions around what we want to learn, what we want to communicate about who we are and what we believe in and how we want to connect and show up in the world. Gemini is not, like I said, just about the mind and thinking and communicating and analyzing and learning. It's that sense of connection that we have with people. Even the most toxic Geminis we know, two that I mentioned earlier, for some reason, there's a large group of people that feel really connected and emboldened by them. One in particular, Cheeto fucking head. You know what I mean. But this is another time, if there's a skill you're trying to really start to work into your life or in your world, if there's something that you feel like you're miscommunicating in your relationships, your business, how you show up in the world, if there's a message you really need to put out in your life, in your business, in your space, the new moon is creating the space for that. Like, what do you want to learn this season? How do you want to grow? What part of your mindset needs to shift in order to be in alignment with the person that you want to become? And like I said, manifestation is a buzzword right now. And I love it. Part of me loves it, right? And then part of me thinks sometimes we only pick up on the buzzy stuff in the wellness space and the stuff that can help us acquire more on the surface level. But the real part I think about manifestation is with Gemini and Sag energy, it's the deep-rooted belief of Sag that anything is possible. And then the Gemini expansive mindset, almost delusional, of just creating the world and your reality just with your thoughts. And I think that's sometimes the thing people miss about manifestation. They think about it as, I've talked about this about abundance too. It's kind of the same idea. We think about it as something in the future. I'm guilty of this too. I want to manifest X, Y, and Z. And then there's probably my Capricorn 8th house stellium, like, well, that's going to take a few years. You better really hunker down. And, we think about it as a future tense thing. And the thing about manifestation is oftentimes we have to start living in that reality before we have the thing. Not even often, pretty much always. So if we want that job opportunity, that relationship, a new sense of self in our body, in our wardrobe, our home, beyond just the surface level, if we want a new skill, if we want to show up with a new perspective, a new set of tools, a new version of ourselves, oftentimes we have to be living, breathing, doing it before we actually quote unquote have it. And this Gemini new moon, when we're talking about manifesting from that place, is the perfect time to take stock of your inner narratives, especially and in any negative self-talk that is going to inhibit those manifestations from becoming a reality. Because another part of manifestation is if you don't believe it to be true, if there's a loud part of you or a prominent part of you that actually thinks it's full of shit or not possible, where do you go from there? If you don't even believe it's possible, the universe can't be in co-creation with you, right? So what are the stories you tell yourself about yourself? The quote-unquote good ones, the quote-unquote bad ones, the negative self-talk. Where do they come from? Are they yours? Was it a parent, a guardian, a friend, a past relationship? And especially the ones that you feel like are holding you back. What would your life be like if that was no longer your reality? When you visualize what you want for yourself in the future, who you are in the future, how do you start embodying that today? And where in your life do you need a perspective shift? Do you need to stop taking yourself so seriously? Do you need to add in a little bit more levity and joy and understand that as much as we want to blame the world around us for all the bad shit that happens to us, we too need to take responsibility for how we contribute to those dynamics, those negative thoughts we've absorbed, even if they were never ours to begin with. We need to take responsibility for how we show up in the world. And when we let the fear, the anxiety, the overthinking, the know-it-all energy, the judgment, the judgmental parts of us take over. So Gemini new moon, yes, I want to expand my life. Yes, I want to create this new reality. And what are the things still standing in the way of me living that version of my truth, living that version of my life, being that version of myself, having those things I say I so desperately want? Is there a part of me that believes it's not possible? And if there is, then writing them all out, getting very clear on what they are, and they won't necessarily disappear overnight, but I think especially because Gemini is so mind focused, we need to take it down into the body even more. So when those thoughts come up, after you write them down and after you see where you are, what's holding you back, and where you want to go, one, being super on your own ass about when those thoughts come into your brain space. And whatever you need to do, saying no, no, thank you, telling a friend about them, writing them down, shifting your attention, focusing, putting your attention on something else, another person, a story, a habit, being present in the moment. And then also breath work is a really incredible practice for Gemini. Gemini rules the lungs. Sag rules the legs, horse, hello. Hips and legs. Gemini rules the lungs. And any somatic practice, if breathwork is not for you, any somatic practice, so any practice that helps you process in and through the body, yoga, EFT tapping, meditation, maybe there's another practice you know and love that really helps you get into your body, dance. When those thoughts are really loud, using those practices to get in your body. Again, not to sit above it in that unevolved Gemini or Sag energy, but to process it through your body without letting it control you, without letting it run the show, without dictating the choices you make based in fear. Processing it through your body in whatever somatic practice feels best and right for you, so you can actually start to let those things go. And the more we're aware of where we're holding back, playing small, giving into narratives that we don't want to keep projecting and portraying for our life moving forward, the more we create awareness around them and then actively work, this is the part we all always miss, that continued work to let them go, gradually, maybe even sometimes overnight, the space, the energy, the thoughts, the belief and faith will shift. And that is Gemini and Sag energy. And I could talk about this all day, like most things, and that is my Gemini and Sag. And I know I always have a lot to say, so thank you for listening. But like I said, my favorite thing in the world is to share information, like a true Gemini rising, like a true Sag sun, to share information, to share it with the world, to share it with you. And I am so unbelievably grateful to you all for listening, tuning in, listening to these long ass episodes. I don't think they're long. You know what? I'm going to change my narrative about that. To listen to these informative, impassioned, fun episodes about something that I love and I get to share with the world. And again, please share this episode, share it on your Instagram story, share it with a friend, text, email, DM, or write a written review for the pod, and you will be entered to win a free birth chart reading with me, 75-minute reading, normally valued at $150. I'm going to be increasing my prices later this summer, but I would love to share your chart with you one-on-one to dig into it together. Whether you know a lot or whether you know nothing, I find birth chart readings are an amazing way to just highlight what you already know about yourself, whether it's buried deep down inside or something you've been allowing to make its way to the surface. It's a validating experience that helps you feel really seen, held, hopefully supported. Thank you again for tuning in. Thank you for tuning in at any point this year. I love you all. Again, shout out to my girl Marielle for making this possible. And I can't wait to breathe in and scream out with you again very soon.